Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
My name's Chris Coach.
I'm Randy Filio.
And this is Spotlight Keene. And thank you. I know we are away a little bit, and
Technical difficulties.
Hopefully we'll start getting back onto a good routine here. But what we hope to do is just talk about things that are happening throughout Keene, but also can be within the region. And if you see us around town and you want to know more about what we're doing, then or if you have something you want us to cover or look into, yeah, let's do it.
Not just Keene, around Keene, because I did hear a rumor that you actually hold a position that actually goes out of Keene, like a county
but then we
thing.
should have put Spotlight Cheshire. No.
Too late now. We spent all that
money.
Too late now.
We didn't spend any money.
We don't have any money.
You don't know us well enough, but we're cheap.
Yeah, we're broke.
But so I first want to apologize right off the bat. I had grandkids here for 12 days, and 7 of those days, my wife and I were taking care of them, and they were sicker than a dog with colds. And then my daughter came back from where she was and joined us, and they still had colds and stuff, but they were feeling much, much better. And after they leave, I get the cold. So I'm coming back from feeling a lot better than it was a head cold right here. You ever have those where you feel like you're floating on another world?
The worst, actually, it's funny, Holly and I were talking about that this morning. The worst sickness that I can remember ever having outside of being like a little kid was a sinus infection. It started with a head cold and went to a sinus infection. For like 6 days, I couldn't even sit up because the equilibrium was just off.
Yeah.
So when you tell people about that, I had a bad head cold and a sinus infection, like, you wimp. Yeah. But it was bad.
Yeah.
And of course, now that you're in your late 30s, I mean, those colds hurt even worse.
Yeah. If I'm in my late 30s, what does that make you?
In my late 30s times 2, something like that,
So, all right. So what I want to start off with today, if Randy, you don't mind, is...
if I do mind, it's not going to matter. So
yeah, it's right, because I'm going to go down that rabbit hole anyways.
Yep.
A lot of things have been going on in the city since we last talked. Let's start with CIP, because that seems to be something, and really explain to people capital improvement projects for the city. This is that time of year where you start talking about what's going to be happening. You take tours to see what these projects are going to be about and where they're located at. And really then you start, because that starts to help you develop the budget overall too, which starts in May. Really, I mean, for the city, for the city itself, the administration, that's a year-round process. Budget building never stops. But for the councils, it really starts in May when you get the books, correct?
Right. Well, capital improvements, as you know, Chris, having been there, that's going like 6 years down the road.
Correct.
So we're looking at potential, highway projects, city projects, bridges. A lot of it has to do with vehicle replacement, fire trucks. When you're talking, an ambulance now is $750,000, and a ladder truck's $1.5 million, and engines are $1 million. And you replace them about every 20 years. So that's always part of the rotation. So that's part of the capital improvements. And then every year, obviously, you go like 6 years out. Every year it comes forward.
Just so you know, ambulances are probably shorter than 20 years. I just happen to know that for some reason.
Yeah. We won't go there, Chris.
I just don't want to. I want to actually help the city of Keene, because that is something that they're.
Well, actually, yeah. No, let me rephrase that. The engines in your ladder trucks, you hope to get 20 years out of them. Ambulances, because as you're becoming an expert on those, even though you didn't think you ever would be, hope to get, or at least Keene does. We hope to get 9 years out of an ambulance.
Yeah.
So Keene has. Typically, we run 3 ambulances, and every 3 years replace one.
Yeah.
But as you know, and as you've probably learned, it's not the mileage on an ambulance; it's the time on an ambulance.
It's the run time, yeah.
Because an ambulance, once it gets to where a patient is, now you're operating, all of its emergency equipment is still running.
Yeah.
And that's where your time in an ambulance comes in, is all that equipment is running. And it doesn't take long before equipment becomes obsolete.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, getting back to the CIP, so that's what you do. As every year when you look at the CIP, as things come closer, you determine Okay, are we on schedule for this? Do we really need it as it's coming forward? Can we back this out a couple of years?
Yeah.
Or you might look out a couple of years and say, you know what, this particular sidewalk area is not going to make it. Do we bring this forward a little bit?
And
so
at what
capital
cost?
improvements
And,
is looking
and
at.
at what cost to another street? Because then you have to push it out, or you have to bump up the overall. And asphalt and concrete, all that stuff is become more expensive. And that's something. Does the do you, when you're looking at the budget, do you maintain a certain amount of money every year for roads and for sidewalks, or do you look at, or do you have a certain distance you're going to do, or a certain number of streets you're going to do, and factor that into the cost that year? I mean, is it a moving target, or is it a set thing? And so some streets may be pushed out another year because they don't make the cut this year because you've already reached the price.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and it is a moving target because sometimes a street or a sidewalk will just fall into quicker disrepair. And it's also how often and how much frequency is that particular sidewalk being used.
Yeah.
Like, is it on the far outskirts of Keene that's not getting a lot of use, or is it right in the downtown area that gets heavy use and used by maybe somebody that has a wheelchair?
Yeah.
You know, where the sidewalk has to be a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
So yes, and then you look at paving projects too. And a mistake that we made several years ago when the budgets were really tight and monies were, well, it is every year, but they tried to push out the infrastructure repairs a little bit farther to save a little bit of money. But you never save money because when you push it out, they just run into more disrepair. And as we saw this past year with the cost of all materials going up, you might have saved, say, a couple $100 the last year, but now you got to spend an extra few $100 this year because the price of equipment and repairs went up. So same thing with the capital improvements. You go out and you try to bring it in as equitably as you can, so 1 year doesn't spike too hard and 1 year doesn't go down too low. You try to keep it as level and sustainable as you can. But yeah, it's a moving target. But you try to do your best. And actually, next week, the public works director, whoever that's going to be, since he retired.
That's one of my questions.
Yeah, the acting public works director, or all of them, all of the above, will probably come in as a team.
Who's the acting public works director right now, since Cord Blomquist has left?
It's kind of all of the above.
So it's have they gone through a process where they've had applicants come in, or are you looking internally?
Both. It's like that whenever there's especially a department head that leaves.
Yeah.
Obviously, you look internally. Is there somebody that was right behind him that's ready to go, or do they feel, does the administration feel somebody else needs to come in and
some
do it?
Fresh eyes, some fresh perspective,
exactly.
different way.
You never know.
It's not to say that one person was doing it wrong before they left. It's just that sometimes that's what you choose, is to take a look at, what are the opportunities by having somebody come in and go from there. I respect that.
It's like any business.
But I also think internally you have some really strong people there too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they definitely are. And then sometimes you have strong people that they don't want that position.
Yeah.
Because there's
They're
always,
happy
when somebody's
right where they
above
are.
you, there's always somebody to kind of blame.
Yeah.
But when, what I say, it's easy to climb to the top of a ladder,
Yeah.
but boy, that fall coming down is pretty quick.
Yeah.
So sometimes people just don't want to have that top position because
they
the buck stops there.
and they like what they're doing, and they know they're making a difference. So good, So when will that be announced? In the coming weeks? Does it have to go before the council?
No. The only that have to come before the council is the city manager, the city attorney, the city clerk. Those are the three that the city council hires. Now, the city manager will let us know. Yeah. But no, it's not a council decision. So we'll be told who they're hiring.
Well, well, that's good.
Yeah. Otherwise,
and you
you have 15 councilors. There'd be too many different opinions about who should be hired or not.
I mean, you have a few hirings that you're going to be doing, correct? I mean, you've got the position up on the 4th floor too, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So that will be somebody because that individual retired.
Exactly. Yeah, up in inspections and code enforcement. So that's a major position.
Yeah.
Do you hire internally or do you bring in somebody from the outside?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. They'll, if somebody inside wants it, they'll get a fair shot at it.
Yeah.
And then if somebody from outside the city wants to apply, they're more than welcome to. So.
And is Tom Mullins the county city attorney, looking to move on at some point?
He's
too?
winding down.
Yes,
He's winding down.
So that's going to be another big loss too.
Yeah. No, that'll be a big loss. I think we'll see him for at least the next year. But we have an assistant city attorney, which is good. She's well qualified. But that'll be the type of same thing when he finally decides that he's going to move on. Yeah. That's something the city council is directly involved in. Yeah. The city council interviews potential candidates for city attorney. We've been fortunate over the years. We haven't had to have many city attorneys. Some towns burn through them. Yeah. And you really need a city attorney that lasts for a while because
it was Jerry Carney before Tom, correct?
No, it was Jerry, and then Jerry left, and I forget because I was off the council for a few years, and I forget the woman's name that was attorney for a little bit, but she didn't stay long. Okay. She left and took a private position.
Okay.
And then Tom came on, and he's been on for quite a while. Does a good job. I have nothing but praise for him. I've gone to his office and disagreed with him on something. In the end, it doesn't matter because he's the attorney. Yeah. But he's always open to discussion and to listen to your opinion. Yeah. And then he'll explain by law, why he might agree with me philosophically, but he'll say, I agree with you, but the law doesn't.
Yeah. Or in his eyes, the law doesn't.
Exactly. His interpretation, his opinion.
Right. And that's but,
okay. But if there's a city council meeting and I argue to the other 14, the city attorney's wrong, and he says, no, I'm wrong, chances are he's going to win the argument. But he's always been fair to listen to opinion. And he'll say that. I'll listen to your opinion. Doesn't mean I'm going to agree on it. Yeah. And he doesn't tell the council what to do. He will just say his recommendation of why something should go a certain particular way or based on case history. Yeah. And but yeah, he'll be a tough one to replace also. So yeah, it's going to be a year of change.
Yeah, but you've had some changes. I mean, you had the fire chief come in a year and a half ago now, or 2 years, almost 2 years now, and you had the police chief is new. Do you know that Chief Stewart?
He was an internal hire. That's the difference. Chief Stewart was an internal hire of the police department, and the fire chief was an outside hire. Yeah. So it shows we do look at both ways.
It's always interesting. It's twofold. It's I just want to write this down so I don't forget it.
Your name?
Yes, Chris. So yeah, is that what it is? All right, thanks, man. But Chief Stewart actually was a corrections officer at the Department of Corrections. And we've always realized that, and we've always realized that the Department of Corrections is a feeder system for many individuals. Now, there's many individuals that choose to stay with us long term. We have a lot of long-term individuals, but at the same time, there are a lot of individuals that say, I really want to be a police officer, but this gives me the foot in the door. And in this day and age, when you're probably down, 9, 10?
Yeah, I think we're down 7 now. We got to hire, but it's you're right. We're down, I think, 7 at this point. To get back to actually hiring 7 officers,
that's hard to do.
It's hard to do because you get retirements coming up. Yeah. And you just, you hire 1, 2 retire. And we've got a lot of guys in the department right now that are eligible to retire. We're just basically, grabbing a hold of their ankles and saying, no, don't go.
Well, and you also have young guys that come in that are looking at some of the, other places now that they've got 2 or 3 years underneath their belt that they could go and maybe earn another $15,000 to $20,000 more. Or even more than that, depending on where you want to go, like Boston or wherever it may be, which may not be something that's real, but it is something that you have to worry about on some levels too, is holding on to what you got.
Oh, yeah.
On a lot of different levels.
You're competing with a lot of things. One is definitely salary. Yeah. And you get, like maybe some young officers, they want the city. They want that go, go, go. Yeah. Where others may say, I've got a wife and kids. I'd rather go to a community that's a little slower pace. Yeah. Some might want to just go to a small town. Yeah. Of course, then you might be under the scrutiny of a few hundred people or a few thousand people. So it all depends. You got some that just might want to be near the coast.
Yeah.
So there's all. So you're competing. I know I've heard even on social media. Well, pay them more, which we have. Keene's very aggressive.
But when people say that, that's just a gut reaction type thing, because a lot of times, ever since COVID hit, everybody has had to pay more due to the fact that everybody else was paying more. You had to meet what market prices. What's interesting is you had to throw the theory of, like on the county side, you'd have to throw out the whole idea of what like county is like ours. Is it Sullivan? Is it Belknap County? Is it whatever? And compare where their numbers were. Oh no! When all of a sudden Walmart started going and paying people $18, $20. And offering them all the stuff. Now a lot of that's changed, and they've peeled back. Not the wage, but they've peeled away a lot of the other things. Then that's been helpful to us. A lot of people have come back, but initially because ours, like yours, is a process. You just can't bump it up like that. You got to get approval, and you got to explain why that is that you're doing it. So it's in this day and age when anybody says, no, we've tried to be as competitive as we possibly can. We don't always get it right, but we do try to be as competitive as we possibly can.
And one thing about Keene Police Department is the Keene's criteria of an officer that they hire is a lot tougher than you would think in a lot of towns. Keene's very strict.
Yeah.
That you don't hear a lot of problems with Keene officers.
Yeah.
And you across the state, you'll read about a rogue cop every now and then. Keene's very particular who they hire. Yeah. And so, it's, even though, you might have somebody that wants to be a cop, Keene might look at him and say that you're not quite the fit for us.
Yeah.
So you have to go down there too. I mean, Concord, New Hampshire, a little bit bigger than Keene, but very similar as far as how the departments run. They were 12 cops down.
Yeah.
So there you got Keene and Concord, 50 miles apart.
Yeah.
They're competing for that same cop. So, and as you know, in not only there, then you got sheriff's departments, you got the state police who are way down.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get the same young cops you are.
This is not something you are going to fix overnight. This is a generational issue that for whatever reason, we knew prior to COVID that we were having staffing issues. Staffing issues all of a sudden became even that much more prevalent because there was a lot of retirement during COVID, a lot of retirement. People that were at age of retirement that were still working were saying, I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't know what the world is like right now health-wise. I'm going to quit. I'm going to start collecting and just living my life that way. Yep. Some of that has changed. Some of those people actually have come back to even part-time, some full-time. But it's not enough to offset the losses. Now, I mean, I'm excited to know that we've had the third floor closed at the nursing home, but now we're looking to slowly, and we're looking at 10 beds to open back up so that we can get our census back up, because we need to. There's a waiting list, and it's a waiting list. But
nurse shortages too.
That's the reason it's closed is because we don't have the staffing across the board. Whether it's LNAs, whether it's environmental aides, dietary aides, LPNs, RNs, we just don't have enough. But we're trying to figure out as best we can how we can get that census up. It helps everybody, especially people don't get that Cheshire Medical Center. I believe it's last year now. They lost 3,500 bed days, and that means that they couldn't move somebody that could go home or go into a nursing home for a multitude of reasons. And so for us to be able to open up those 10 beds is really, really important.
Go, Chris.
We're getting there.
Yep.
But we want to make sure the care is at the highest level that it needs for the individuals that come into our nursing home. So I applaud Catherine Kindop and her staff, because I think they've done an incredible job under incredible situation. I mean, we're masking again. Our staff is masking again because of some of the COVID issues that we're facing again.
A lot of people don't realize
but we are.
How hard it is out there to hire. Because like I just mentioned, they said, well, give them a raise. Of course, on the same breath, they'll say also lower taxes.
Right.
But you're right. Just giving the raise isn't enough. And young people, at least they're becoming nurses again. I was reading about that the industry is now kind of on a hiring boom where young people are getting back into nursing again. Not so much with law enforcement yet. It's still young people just don't want to be a cop, and you can kind of understand why. That's a tough business to be in. You're always being scrutinized.
But remember one thing. Remember that when you're down so many, a boom for nursing helps. It does not cure. The cure is going to take a generation of us getting in these times like this, trying to figure out how to move forward and best support our situations that we're in.
You're right, because a lot of them are in nursing school. Well, it's going to be a while before they're elevated to the point of you lose, a 20, a 30, a 40-year nurse.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing losing a 20-year cop.
Right.
You're hiring a new body just because you got the body there. You're not apples for apples. You're not replacing a 30-year nurse with an LNA coming out of school. You're not replacing a 20-year sergeant in the police force with a rookie out of the academy.
That's the thing that you'll have to all struggle with at the same time as I do. That when you have a retirement, you're losing a historical perspective that you're not gonna gain back for a period of time.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's not a bad thing. It's just a reality thing that you have to really have all your standards, policies, and procedures in place so that people that are new can come in and do the work that needs to be done and understand the core principles and values that you have. So I think overall those are all things that are happening on both the city side, on the county side, and I think that's good. But I'm not going to let you go away from CIP until I ask you a few more questions. One is there any big thing coming down the road that aside from the downtown, we don't know where that stands at this point. So that's a CIP project, and we know that it's under review again on some levels, right?
Still.
Correct.
The downtown project, and we just discussed it the other night, all that really got approved was a concept. The majority of the council anyhow said, well, let's take a look at this. And actually I've got 4 pages here of some of the recommendations and some of the reports that have coming back, even to the point of parking lot angled. If you realign the parking spaces downtown, can you squeeze in a few more spots? And that's here on this.
But don't make the parking lots so tight that the car industry on the car repair in industry is going to have all these dings that they're pulling out of cars. Oh, absolutely.
No, that's the whole point I'm making. The project, downtown, which obviously has been very volatile, there's just even down to the smallest, area of concern we're discussing. One thing that I brought up to keep the flow of traffic moving more is right turns on red, coming out of West Street, coming out of Roxbury Street. The key is keep traffic moving. Mm-hmm. The new lights will definitely be computerized. Mm-hmm. Those type of things. But
so
of course,
they'll sense on a Sunday morning when it's really slow downtown.
They'll blink.
They'll notice if they are on. Right. They'll notice that there's a light over a car on Roxbury Street, so they'll change to meet that need. Right? Or is it a rotation? Because right now it's a rotation.
Technically, yes. I was reading some of the information coming back from some of the engineers. We're basically coming out of, at least as I'm reading it now, coming out of Roxbury, coming out of West, will allow a right turn on red unless somebody hits a cross signal.
Yeah.
And then that'll stop that. But
that's good for the sign company, sign master down there. You guys, Sign City, Keene, New Hampshire.
Yeah. No left, no right, stop, go. So yes, get back to the CIP. This is all, this is part of the CIP, but this is forward now.
Yeah.
CIP as you go out pulls things forward. One thing that's on the CIP is Lower Winchester Street. That's pulling forward. So you get a lot of projects down the pipe, coming forward.
Yeah.
So then you hit the downtown one, and that comes right before you. But you're still looking over your shoulder a little bit to see CIP what's coming down.
Yeah.
For an example, West Street looks like about 2030 that West Street is going to be torn up and redone.
Okay.
Will it happen in 2030? don't know, but that's on the horizon as that pulls forward.
Okay.
Do you tear up, because you know how West Street is, the the sidewalks are narrow and there's telephone poles in the middle of them.
Yeah.
Do you tear them up and put your utilities underground?
Yeah.
Do you widen the sidewalks out a little? So that's 2030. Lower Winchester Street, you're probably talking late 25, probably 26 now, before that project starts. But that's all. So basically, yes, there's always going to be something going on with a project. So when people think, oh, finally we're done, no.
Yeah.
No, this one's done. Now it's on to the next one.
Okay.
So that's basically the the CIP. It's just no big surprises. You got things coming up, and you kind of look and you say, oh, that's 2 years out. Let's take a look at this and see if it's where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Now for example, you live on Gilson Street. We know that'll never need repairs. Okay, you're good. We realize that. So
No.
Gilson Street's
But
all
I also
set.
know that it was redone in the last 10 years, so I probably won't see it for another 20 years.
Well, you're right.
Though I do say, why I have you here, something to put on your list of things to do.
Oh, I don't have
And
many,
I
but
think,
go ahead.
and I'll say this to Andy Bohannon too at some point. I watch way too many individuals, especially elder people, who pull up for some event at the Fuller Park right there, which is the rec center, and they have the chain all going all the way down, so they have to step over that chain. I've seen people fall. I've seen people almost fall. I've seen all kinds of bad situations that might be better served if we had an opening on both sides, and all to the down to the road, so that they could get access easier to those events, because you have all the Veterans Day, Memorial Day, you have all kinds of, you have movie nights, you have all kinds of things. It is what Andy Bohannon has done in the Parks and Recs around that perspective. I mean, he also oversees facilities, also oversees the juvenile justice. He also oversees cemeteries. I mean, there's a lot. But when it comes to Parks and Recs and programming and supports for the cities, he's done a great job. And I will tell you that the Parks and Recs, and when I was on the councils, a lot like it's the afterthought of, if there's a place to cut, we'll look there, because police and fire are much more prevalent, and public works is much more prevalent. And if it's a place that we can cut back on some things this year, that's what we're going to do. Luckily, Andy's been very skilled at writing grants.
Well, I was going to say the same thing at the same time. No, you are correct. I was listening to Dan Mitchell on the radio this morning, and one of the comments he always makes is wants versus needs. No, obviously, parks are always more of a want. Now, some people might say it's an absolute need, because your kids go there a lot after school or during school. So, but you are correct. Police, fire, public works, you have to have a certain level. But Andy Bohannon does a great job. Now, I realize you said you saw somebody trip over the chain. It's okay.
It was you. All right.
You don't jump as high as you used to. But, yeah.
No, but it's risk management. In my world, it's risk management. And if somebody gets hurt because, breaks a hip or something like that, well, that could come back at the city, because, but I just think it makes sense. I don't think it'd be a huge cost. I already envision what it would look like.
Have you contacted Andy yet?
Not yet, but I'm going to.
There you go.
Andy,
Not yet, but I'm going to.
You're on alert.
Okay, I'll let him know.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll text him now.
Yeah.
Get ready for a phone call.
Yeah.
But he's been.
I think
he's
it's a
been
small
great
cost.
at grants. He's a great. And the thing is, there's a lot of grants out there, especially for Parks and Recs.
Yeah.
And he finds them.
Yeah.
We got a grant to tear down the findings building.
Yeah.
We just couldn't find a contractor that was freed up to do it.
Now, I would say that you didn't get a grant to tear down the finding building. You got a grant to build a skate park.
Yes, but in order to build a skate park, the building had to come down.
Yeah, but that's part of the cost, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all the part of one big happy family. But yeah, that was definitely part of it. You look at like the bike park out at Wheelock Park.
Yeah.
Grants were available. He's looking now at grants for Robin Hood Park, because obviously he's got some things that he would like to bring in.
Yeah.
And with the exception of fixing the pool,
that's all they should be doing, is fixing or putting in a new pool. Never ever should they be talking about taking out the pool and putting in some.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. If we can, there's talk now that it actually might be fixable that'll hold us out for a decade.
Yeah.
If that's true, great, do it.
But then start putting some monies aside if that's what you're.
Oh, there's monies aside, but remember that pool was donated for free by the Lions Club decades ago.
Yeah.
And now
I know that. I'm a lion. Roar, hear me roar.
God, let's not go there.
Yeah. So can I ask you?
You can ask me anything.
Gilboa Ave. Is there any talk about development down there? You know, a parking garage or?
Yeah, the parking garage thing that's ongoing. Still looking at parking garage. One of the problems with Gilboa Ave is the private property owners.
Yeah.
It's still a problem. You got the insurance group that owns most of the parking lot on the right side.
Is that Main Street?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, USA or something.
Yeah. So that's an issue. The other side of the road, once again, privately owned. So Gilboa Ave, and we said this before when we were looking at when they call the arts corridor they were talking about, which was some good ideas. But once again, we're still kind of beholden to the private property owner. That's kind of true. To jump ship a little bit and go down the road. Kingsbury property, there's nothing, in my opinion, that's on the front burner more than getting that property situated.
Why can't you, if there has been situations where people have broken into the building, tried to start fires or whatever it may be that's been caused down there, then why can't you mandate that he takes the friggin' building down? Or at least go to court or something. I mean, because if he's putting, if it's an empty building, I mean, why is there not more that you can do?
We're doing everything we can, and obviously it's called lawyers and private property rights, and he will respond if the police go in and see somebody in there, or they say this part needs to be shored up.
Yeah,
they'll come down and shore it up enough where they show they responded to the complaint.
Is he up to date on his on the taxes?
He stays just up to date within probably about 30 seconds, so we couldn't take it. Because I would love to. The problem with taking the property is you have to clean it up also. But my hope is with Mayor Khan, and when he was vice president of the college, that's what he did: buildings, facilities, infrastructure. I'm hoping with his experience and wisdom and maturity, he can sit down with the property owner and say, hey, look, the property owner of Kingsbury's, he's holding out for the big bucks. No secret there. He wants as much as he can get, which to this point has been zero.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he will settle down a little bit and maybe listen to some negotiations. Because if you look at property as far as developable to put affordable housing on, that's walking distance to downtown, that's the location. The acreage there is perfect. Somebody would not have to have a car, even if they had a modest income. They wanted to walk or bike, it's on the bike path.
Yeah.
So to me, that's one of the priorities, because obviously one of the biggest problems in our area right now is affordable housing at any level.
Yeah.
So that property right there, to me, it is kind of out of sight, out of mind. Every year kind of the subject come back up and it goes away. I've talked to Mayor Khan about this. This is the issue that I really see as one of the top front burners that we need to hopefully this year get resolved. Don't know if it will. Once again, private property owner, doesn't live in Keene, doesn't have a real feel for Keene, doesn't really care.
Yeah.
So for him, it's all about dollars.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can come to a reasonable compromise and see what we can do. But we'll see.
And then there's been some talk about parking too.
Yeah, there's always talking about parking, as you just mentioned, talking about parking decks again, and it's always talking about Gilboa Ave, just because that's the spot in Keene where there's room to build a parking deck.
Yeah,
there's no secret that that's on the burner again. But you were on the city council. It was on the burner when you were on the city council. Mm-hmm. Once again, it's about cost, development, private property owners. Are there grants out there? And there usually isn't. Parking decks, some people say, well, let the private developer come in and build a parking deck and maintain it. There's no money in parking decks, otherwise people would be coming in building them all the time.
Yeah.
It's just not one of those that they make money on. That's why municipalities are stuck with them. So we're talking about neighborhood parking also, about side street parking. More and more you get homes that might have had one family in there and had one small driveway. Now there might be multiple family members living there and need more parking on the side streets. You look at the apartment building built on Roxbury Street, which holds 150 units, something like that. There's parking there, I think, for 1.5 cars. Well, if everybody in those buildings has 2 cars, that 0.5 car has to park somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at all the side streets in Keene for parking. So, parking's an ongoing project, downtown and neighborhoods, and of course the downtown project itself. So, and we're also looking at this parking consultant mentioned the other night when we had him at MSFI. In the wintertime, we have a parking ban throughout the city.
Yeah.
And their opinion is, don't have an overall ban. Just do it when the police declare or Public Works declares tonight is going to be an emergency snow night, no parking on the streets. When you don't have, and a lot of communities have that.
And
if there is, if
how
they
do you communicate that?
Well, that's it. Social media, newspaper, radio, and people that park on the streets, you just make them aware that it is going to be your responsibility to know if there is a snow emergency. Yeah. Now, obviously, right now we don't have that yet. Right now, there's just a complete parking ban. Yeah. But they're saying, to open up more parking, don't have a winter parking ban. And I think Manchester has it. Manchester will actually, and they have, the outdoor signs, the electronic signs. Mm-hmm. They will start flashing. We have a winter parking ban in effect tonight. Do not park on the side street. So maybe something that Keene could do. So all the little things. All
right, I'm going to go a little off topic here. go in different directions.
Topic.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, bowler, Isaac, Keene High School bowler. Isaac Leclerc.
Oh, yeah, bowled a 300.
Bowled a perfect game.
Yep. He got the athlete of the week.
I just graduated from having the bars put up on the side of the aisle, the bumpers.
Yeah.
So for him to be able to do that is it's always a major feat. And you know what? We've had good. What's crazy is since they added bass fishing and bowling onto the NHIAA, New Hampshire Sports Association. It's the we've been right near the top in bowling. We've been right near the top and had some of the best bowlers in the state. We've had championships in bass fishing, and it's really neat. I'm glad. I'm happy to see some of these other sports too. That's the thing about Keene High School. We've always been strong in skiing, whether it's Nordic or Alpine, and cross country and stuff like that. And then we've had years where we've been strong in football, in years where we've been strong in basketball, and years where we're competitive at least, and in soccer and all that. But these individual sports, that there's been some really great consistency there around having quality athletes really showcase for the city.
And I like what the Sentinel's been doing too. The athlete of the week.
Yeah, I do too.
It brings it up.
Yeah.
Like I went out, and I hadn't been to a tournament for a long time, just because of my schedule. I went out and caught a Keene High wrestling match. Yeah. And they wrestled against Timberland, who's by far the top team in the state.
Timberland is always one of the top teams.
And it was virtually a tie. And Keene lost by a tiebreaker by 1 point.
Yeah.
And so I went out there and caught some wrestling. And actually, one of the varsity wrestlers, who's the top in the state, is a young woman.
Yeah.
And I watched. She is fast.
Yeah.
And strong.
Yeah.
She had some. Yeah. She was tiny. She had some.
She's
she had some muscle on her.
Yeah, you have to be
muscle and speed.
It's I'll tell you. I've told you this before. I've wrestled when I was in high school. Coach Metichello, one of the best. He is probably one of the best wrestling coaches New Hampshire and even New England has ever seen. But I always did it more for conditioning because I was a horrible wrestler. When they put me out there, I'd always end up counting the tiles in the ceiling.
Yeah, looking at the ropes.
I was always on my back, but the conditioning of it, man, kept me in the shape I wanted to be in. but it wasn't very good.
Wrestling is one of those sports. Like hockey. If you're a defenseman and the player gets by you, you always have your goalie hopefully back you up.
Yeah.
Wrestling, the only thing backing you up is the mat.
Yeah.
That's it. There's not like
it's comfortable though. When you're laying on your back, it's comfortable.
They're good comfortable mats, except when you got a guy weighing about 190 on top of you. But
kudos for that for him, and also you and I had the opportunity this week to work out at the wards, and that was I had I was at Ward 4 at Simon School. You were at Ward 4 at Simon School.
Oh yeah.
In the morning, you were there like all day, and I was there for like 2 or 3 hours.
You were the meet and greet. You were the nice guy.
Yeah, I was the guy that had the most fun.
Yeah,
because I get to just go over to people. Everybody. How you doing? Hi, how are you? How are you? And ask them if they're Ward 4 a registered Ward 4 voter, and then also ask them if they had their license, and then shoot the breeze with them about anything else we wanted to talk about. And it was a lot of fun. I saw people I hadn't seen in years. And I would say to anybody, if you can give a few hours during election season, we're only stronger for it. I will also say to every election worker, thank you first and foremost.
It went well.
And it went extremely well. And there was a huge changeover.
Yep.
They went from, when you would go in to vote, you'd go in and they'd have a thing of papers, and you'd line up on A to C, D to G, or whatever it was.
Get in the proper line.
In the proper lines. And they would find your name. They'd have a little ruler, and they'd go down, they'd cross you out. And this time you came in, you gave them your license. They'd you put it in this little slot. They had everything was on a
little
iPads, and it worked. They had a few hitches in the very beginning, but once they worked those out, that was smooth sailing for everybody. And they had enough people working the tablets and that it worked out well.
Yep.
And people were in and out of there in a very short period of time. So again, kudos goes to, as always, the dean. Dean of city clerks, Patty Little, who is by far, we are so lucky to have an individual like her who has been in that position for years and does such a great job. And her staff, Terry, Bill, and others, they just do a great job. But everybody else that volunteers, and it is volunteer. I don't care if you get paid, $75 for the day.
I didn't get paid.
No, but you ate your $75 because they had great baked goods there.
I got $75 worth of coffee.
Yeah, there you go.
And $75 worth of coffee jitters. But you're right. It's the only time you ever see a lot of people at one place. Always seems to be the funeral home, right?
Yeah.
But volunteer for the polls, because you're right. It's like you see everybody.
Yeah.
And
they're happy to see you.
And if you're a greeter, that's even you had the best one.
Yeah.
I had fun too. I was just handing out the ballots. Either Democrat, Republican ballot, handing them out. And I didn't have time to talk as much because there was a line. But the Secretary of State's office was down, and they come to Keene, and they never worry about it. They actually kind of joke about how efficient Keene is.
Yeah.
When things got going, they were showing when somebody had come through the door, show the license, and get their ballot, a lot of it was like 28 seconds.
Yeah.
28 seconds.
Yeah.
And you see other communities when they have lines through the quarters and around.
Yeah. And they were still doing the old way. A lot of like in dairy, when they showed dairy, I could see that they were still doing the paper.
Yep. Now in Keene, we had, you're right, it was electronic. We used to go to the line A to Z. Well, after they were done, we still had that on backup.
Yeah.
Like people would bring the little papers to me, and it had their name on it in alphabetical order, and we just put it in basically almost like a little index card thing.
Yeah.
And about every 15 minutes, they'd come over, take it, go over, and then they'd actually manually do what used to be done that would slow things down.
Yeah.
Now, in the future, they're not going to have to do that. This was just
in case. It was a test. Yeah.
It was a test. It was backup just to make sure. And then I got a couple hours off yesterday, or election day afternoon, went home, grabbed something to eat, came back, and I was one of those doing the write-ins, checking the write-ins.
Yeah.
I thought that, when I left home, I said, "Hon, back around midnight," and I got there at 7. I was home at 8.
Yeah.
It once again, just methodical.
Yeah.
You took 25 ballots that had gone through as write-in. we separated the ones for Biden and all the ones for non-Biden. The ones for non-Biden.
What were some of the non-Bidens? Mickey Mouse?
Not many of them. Most of them were legitimate.
Yeah,
there might have been one or two of them.
Like Kennedy or something like that.
Yeah. There was a few, but not many at all. Most of them, which surprisingly, way more than I thought, were Biden. So what it was, there was 4 of us at one table. I counted 50, signed my name to it, handed it over to him. He counted them, make sure there's 50, and he signed his name as a secondary. He counted 50, signed his name on a different pile, put it over to me. I had to recount them at 50 and sign my name to it.
Yeah.
Then they sealed them.
Yeah.
So, and initially when they had the 50, somebody initially just counted the 50, then they handed the stacks over. So each stack of 50 was counted 3 times. But it was just bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
And we were out of there in an hour. It was like clockwork. I was amazed. And but I was amazed at how many people wrote in Biden.
And the problem with that is that you probably drank a whole bunch of coffee to keep yourself awake until midnight, and now you're like, "What do I do now? What do I do now?"
It was home watching. Started watching The Sopranos again.
Oh, I got to do that. It's
been a while.
I was a huge fan.
And
that and West Wing. I've watched West Wing though twice now, and The Office I've watched 4 times. So
The Sopranos. And each time you watch it, you pick up things or hear things you didn't hear before.
Yeah.
And you're right. Now I get home at 8, and at first, Holly, my wife thought, did they throw you out?
Yeah.
It's like nope, just like clockwork. It's like, okay, let's watch Sopranos. So like 10 o'clock, she goes, "You ready for bed?" Like, nope. Still got a few cups of coffee left in me.
Yeah.
But no, it was enjoyable. It went like clockwork. There was no, with the exception of the first 15 minutes, a couple of the printers had a little glitch. But they reactivated them, and it went like clockwork, and very heavy turnout.
Yeah. And question for you is, I've heard that there might be a restaurant going into Miller Brothers.
Haven't heard that one. Well, I've heard,
will you do the research on that for me?
I will. I've heard a bunch of, I've heard rumors about businesses going out, businesses coming in, until they get verified. I saw where Brewtopia on Washington Street is shutting down.
Is it?
He's the one that just sold unique beers and things.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those things that when he did it, it was a niche.
Yeah.
And now you go into any supermarket.
Right.
And they have
everything.
They have everything now.
Yeah. So,
it used to be you went in, they had Bud and Coors. And now all the microbreweries are everywhere. So unfortunately, but he did his niche for a while and survived it. But the restaurants downtown, I talked to the owner of Fritz's the other day. He said he had a great year.
Yeah.
And I hope there's another restaurant coming in there. As we said, there's a new bakery getting ready to open.
At the Apothecary.
Yeah, and I'm sure half our audience has no idea what you're talking about when you say Apothecary. It's kind of the same where the Crystal restaurant was.
Yeah.
They're like, what? Where?
Soul Emporium, where Soul Emporium used to be, where the Apothecary used to be.
Which
there's
was
a bakery is going in there.
The Apothecary used to be a privately owned drugstore.
Right.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
So good. No, I'll look into that. I'll have to go I'll check with the 4th floor and see if somebody's pulled the permit on that.
And just going back so that the people know, a lot of times when we have openings on, I'm guessing the city too, but on the county side, we always do a national search. Doesn't mean we don't hire locally, but it's you go out and you see what's out there, and you also see what you have here, and you see what the best candidate is, and then we go from there. I mean, when Rick Van Wickler decided to retire, we did a national search, but we ended up taking somebody internally.
You had the qualified person.
Right. We had what we felt was the best candidate.
And he wanted the job.
And he applied for the job, and he went through the process. So it's when you hear they're doing a national search, a lot of times it's like people are like, well, that means that they're not looking internally. Yeah, we do, but it's what you should do is you should look at all, and you should also be at the same time really planning for the future and having people come up through the system too.
Yep.
And see and making them be prepared so when that day comes they can apply and be the best candidate.
Absolutely. I mean, you got some towns where you see they always hire from within, but it doesn't mean you're getting the best person.
Right.
No, you have to get it's only fair to the taxpayers that when you're running a multi-million-dollar department, you've got the best person possible running it. Once in a while you might make a mistake, but Keene historically has done pretty good with its department heads.
Yeah. So
just like the county, right? You got to hire the best.
Well, I don't know, but yeah,
Maybe
they hired me,
maybe
right?
not at the top, but you know.
All right, number crunch. Number one,
geez, here we go.
New Hampshire ranks for financial literacy in the U.S. The state also ranks 7th lowest nationally for its recent credit card delinquency rate of 5.74%. And the change in delinquency rate from quarter 4 2021 to quarter 4 2022, minus 12.5%. We are frugal Yankees and know how to handle our money. And this comes from the Penny Hoarder Financial Literacy and Forbes Advisor credit cards. Just like to always give my facts. Somebody says, where do you get that from? Well, it's right here.
Yeah, well, I was telling you, spewing out facts, because that's when our audience starts taking a nap. But
Yeah,
what's the next one?
$90 million. The investment New Hampshire is making in rural broadband connectivity to connect over 50,000 homes and business to high-speed internet using federal funds through the American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund. And that's the Department of Business and Economic Affairs is the source from that.
Well, when you talk about numbers like that, as you're aware, we had a New Hampshire judge talk about how many monies the state should be giving cities and towns for an adequate education. And now they're fighting it, saying we don't have it. But yet...
they want to table it.
Yeah, they want to table it, but they're being asked for another $90 million to go towards charter schools, and that seems like it's on their fast track.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah.
Don't have the money for the public schools, but all of a sudden you have money for the charter schools. I'm telling you, I have never seen a state and a governor who so dislike funding public education.
Yeah.
It's just... It's a tragedy is what it is, because all that really means is, your local taxes are going up.
Yeah.
Because somebody's got to pay for it.
Well, I think it's one of those things. I marked it down here, and I know we only have probably about 4 minutes or so to go, but you're, I'm saying probably about 4 or 5 years ago, we started hearing, and we knew this all the time, we were frustrated to see that whenever the state of New Hampshire said, we're going to balance the budget, it was at what cost to everybody else.
Right.
And for years, and a great example is that the state of New Hampshire wanted one pension fund. And they said, if you do that, we'll give you 35% of the funding for that, and that you can offset that by users in government.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they bumped that down to 20 some odd percent, I think 22, and then they took it all away.
Yep.
And the increase to the taxpayer was 3 to 4-fold. County was affected by it, cities, towns, and schools.
And the state washed their hands of it completely.
And when I say schools, it's not. It's schools. It's schools in a broader sense of even university systems, because they have pension plans, and so all of a sudden, and state, and all of a sudden, that was something that we had to pick up, and we got frustrated. We started talking about it. I know that from our discussions, you started talking about it too. We wrote an op-ed way back when at the Sentinel, and we started doing tours with people from New Hampshire Municipality
Association.
Association. And also we found it and others, and we started really trying to educate. And what came out of it was, and I know this for a fact, that Senator Riccardi was the one that led the fight to add more money into a higher percentage. Now, initially she wanted 40, and I think she was able to. Went to 29, and we were at about 18 to 22% of the funding that they were of the 40 of the rooms and meals tax that they were supposed to give. Now we're supposed to get 40. We're getting 22. They bumped it up to 29. Now there's some people will say that it's even less than that because of certain things, and I get that. But that started by a conversation that we all in Cheshire County, in Keene and Cheshire County.
Yep.
It started with a conversation because she said she was on a call on my radio show when I used to do my radio show. She said I was on a call where I was learning about things, and I heard this, and I'm a selectman in Bedford, and I agreed with what you were saying, and so I chose to take this on as my first major issue. And and I had her on later on, and she again thanked us for really making her aware of this, because she, it really didn't make sense to her. So I guess what I'm saying is that we can have a voice.
Oh, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but you got to be squeaky.
We can have a voice if we do it in a thoughtful manner and a very direct manner, because it is one of the biggest issues we face is that all too often the state doesn't pay what it's supposed to be paying its fair share,
and they get away with it.
Yeah,
and it amazes me that I know I just saw the Republicans picked up 2 votes on special elections on the legislature, so I think they got 5 more than the Democrats do. But it's like a game. It's like, oh, we just gained 2 more, so now we don't have to give in to anything to you. And it's like, that's not what effective government's supposed to be. It's not like one side gained the advantage, so we go to our room, you go to your room, and nothing gets done. It's crazy, but that's how they're playing it. And what they were playing it on was the funding of education. We picked up 2 more votes. We're not going to have to compromise.
But they learn it.
Crazy.
But they learn it because this is something that's being pursued on every level. I mean, look at the what we're hearing about the border talks, which is frustrating some Republican senators that they're saying, let's not do anything about it. Let's make it an issue, a campaign issue, and I mean, I heard 4 Republican senators, not Democrat senators, this morning.
No, Romney was the lead voice on that.
But there was
they're being told.
Langford is even who's been negotiating this whole thing, and there's a bunch of them. It's like, wait, no. If this needs to be done, this needs to be done, and we need to do it now. Right. I mean, look at Ukraine and what's going on there.
I know.
I mean,
and they tied
the
it
lack
in.
of funding, and how they tied it, and now they tied it, and now they don't want to do anything. And people, I mean, it's not like
and it's
people
all
are
because
dying on both sides.
Trump's telling them, do not come to a compromise because I don't want Biden getting any credit.
And
that's all it comes down to.
And that's not rumor. That's him saying it and being recorded.
Oh, he said it.
At a New Hampshire, function, and it's sad to me, because then I look at this over here, and in the middle, we govern. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care. We govern best when we're in the middle.
Yep.
We govern best when we are in the middle, coming together, working together. That's when we are at our best on any level of government. And you know what? You see it all the time, for the most part, in local. When you have to deal with local, you work together for a common good of your area, whether it's a city, county, whatever it is. But when you start getting on a higher level, it becomes too. I don't want to be primaried. They're going to primary. If I don't vote this way, they're going to primary. It's not about the issue anymore. It's about wanting to hold on to your seat. And I've always said I'd rather lose my seat than vote the right way.
Oh, absolutely.
Than have that control.
No.
So I don't know, but I think we're coming on to the end here.
We're about done for another week.
Yeah, and I always want to thank you. Again, if you see us in the community, please pull us aside. If you have ideas or thoughts about things that you'd like to see us look into or talk about on the show. But see you next week.
Yep, if things are going well, please, stop me and thank me. If you have any problems or complaints, Chris is the one to talk to.
All right. Have a great week.